Controversy lay ahead. Despite having won the Champions League just a few months earlier, club president Lorenzo Sanz was defeated in the Real Madrid presidential elections by Florentino Perez, whose campaign hinged on one promise: to bring Luis Figo to Real Madrid. Perez delivered. Figo arrived for a fee of 61 million euros.
I will try my best to justify through my performances on the pitch the contracts I've signed with Real Madrid. I want to make myself worthy of representing the name of Real Madrid.
Big shock, the fact that we had a new president, the fact that we had a new player was nothing. It was nothing new to Real Madrid. We just won the Champions League. The fact that we then were going to bring in, a player who was voted World Player of the Year was a great coup for Real Madrid. The fact that they got him from Barcelona was one over on them as such, and he was going to make our team better, so we were thrilled to bits.
So Figo comes into a very, very good side, and basically it's a very good side plus the world's best player. Can't fail. And the player who gets moved out of position for Figo is Steve McManaman, who eventually refines himself on the left-hand side of midfield in a slightly narrow role, and actually it works really well. In the first season, Luis Figo for Real Madrid is superb.
His ability to cross the ball, his ability to take people on, cross the ball to Raúl, Morientes, whoever played up front, again, was secondary for him. He was a wonderful player, coming into arguably the greatest team around at that time because we just won the Champions League. So, he fitted in quite comfortably.
In Catalonia, supporters and players were stunned.
It's like you throwing a grenade into the public, because it's very delicate situation with the Barca player going to Real Madrid, and he knew that also, but he decided still to do it.
It was a great change. Luis had been with us for some years, so he knew what Barcelona meant, the fans, and the special nature of this club.
He becomes the embodiment from Barcelona's point of view of all that is wrong with Real Madrid and the way they go about things. He becomes the embodiment from Real Madrid's point of view of the fact that fundamentally Barcelona are a bunch of losers. That fundamentally the best player comes to us in the end.
It was a little bit shock for the club and also for our players, because you're not going that quick to the enemy, but he did, and at the end it's just a job also. And, maybe when you are a really Catalan player, you understand it maybe better.
One of the reasons why Barcelona fans are so angry and so aggressive and why it becomes so dramatic is because they loved him so much, because they trusted in him so much, because they believed that he represented them.
I think that amongst his teammates, his switch was not seen as a betrayal. Today in the world of football, everyone makes decisions. Sometimes you make mistakes, and sometimes you don't.
Well, if it wasn't bad enough, the rivalry between Real Madrid and Barcelona, the fact that, we'd taken arguably their best player strengthened our side and weakened the Barcelona side was another thing altogether. And it was highly charged, and it was exhilarating, it was frightening, it was, exciting at the same time.
He becomes the focal point of a hatred that's not just about him, but which his move has exacerbated, his move has tapped into, and he becomes both cause and consequence of the rivalry. And I think that's quite difficult for him to live with.
In October 2000, Figo's first return to the Camp Nou was a major news story. 100,000 people channeled their aggression towards one man. For once in El Clasico, the football and the result seemed inconsequential. Figo was even spared the responsibility of taking corners for fear of being hit by missiles.
My lasting memory of it really was of the slight look of bewilderment with Figo, that the idea that he couldn't believe that it was quite so bad, despite the early warnings, that former teammates were absolutely flying into him, even though they then embraced him after the game.
Many of the players experienced a lot with Luis during those years, and for them, that is what remains in their memories. Luis was a friend, and so the reaction of his teammates to say hi to him and to hug him, that wasn't premeditated, it was genuine, and it's just what happened at that moment.
Madrid's faith in Figo reaped rewards, however. He helped his side to the league title in his first season. and then received the prestigious FIFA World Player of the Year award.
When I think of Luis Figo, I think about him taking people on, exciting the crowd, you know, great crosses, and also, you know, a great goal scorer. The goals he scored were always wonderful goals.
His good form continued during his second season at Real. Alongside the latest Galactico, Zinedine Zidane, he made the transition from out-and-out winger to a more central role. The Portuguese became more involved in dictating the play for Real Madrid.
He was the difference. Because if you gave him the ball in a dangerous area of the pitch, you knew it could end up in the back of the net.
I think during his years at Barcelona, the managers he had imposed a tactical system that limited his football. He had to adapt very precisely to what the managers asked of him. And when he went to Real Madrid, he reached another dimension. He had more freedom. His football was more expressive. He had more room to roam on the pitch.
He wanted to come inside and be involved, and of course he was brilliant enough that that made sense. But the basic idea was, this is a really good team. We had Figo, he's basically a right winger, but he's so good that if he's got some freedom, let him come inside and do more.
Figo did just that, scoring 3 times in the Champions League as Real Madrid reached the 2002 final. Bayer Leverkusen were beaten 2-1 in Glasgow, and Figo was finally a European Cup winner. For all the euphoria surrounding Figo and Real Madrid, the competitive nature of El Clasico and the bitter rivalry between Spain's biggest clubs ensured it was not always plain sailing. Madrid and Figo returned to the Camp Nou in November 2002.
I don't think anybody had experienced a game of football like that, because in the end it was slightly farcical, as in the game was secondary, the game was spoilt. You know, he was our chief corner taker, so when he went over to take the corners, you know, there might have been 4, 5, 6 stewards, armed guards, whatever, you know, telling the fans to stop throwing things, but it just came and it came and it came.
Every time he touched the ball, he was booed. I've never witnessed anything like it. Every time he touched the ball. And he's one of those players that always wants to have the ball. And the crowd continued to boo him. Normally a player gets jeered 2 or 3 times, but he was booed throughout the entire match.
I think in the end we went off the pitch while everything calmed down, and once that happens, the game's spoiled, the game's secondary.
The noise, you know, was so overwhelming. A head of a pig or something on the field throwing at him, and yeah, and he was a traitor. Every time he was on the ball, they whistled and they called him a traitor.
What are we, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years on, we're still talking about, you know, what was thrown on the pitch, and it was, you know, if it happened now, it'd be, you know, talked about as an absolute disgrace, and it was then. And you know, it's, to even think about what got thrown at him then even in a highly charged game is quite ridiculous, really.
Unfazed, Figo played a key role in Madrid's title win that season. His 10 goals and numerous assists were central to the Galacticos clinching another championship. 1 year later, he would captain his country as Portugal hosted Euro 2004.
He was a European champion when he was 16. He was a world champion when he was 20. He was one of the most important players in the national side.
At international level, Figo had been a young prodigy, the leader of Portugal's so-called golden generation. He won the FIFA Under-16 World Cup in 1989 and followed that triumph with the Under-20 title 2 years later.
I'm absolutely certain that his performance in that tournament helped Portugal to win the Cup and contributed to him playing for 3 of the biggest clubs in Europe.
Having impressed at youth level, he made his full international debut aged just 18. and went on to amass 127 appearances for his country, scoring 32 goals along the way.
He was a player that showed his leadership skills in whatever team he played. In the most difficult situations, he was never scared to receive the ball.
Figo always set the standard and went beyond what was expected. He never played below the levels demanded by the game. He always played above. And because he did that, he had that moral and technical authority to bring the rest of the team up to his level.
It was Figo's performance at Euro 2000.
If the game required Figo's speed to be 120 kilometers per hour, he would play at 180. If the game demanded that he play at 200 kilometers an hour, he would play at 220. And so one of Figo's greatest qualities was to produce more than what the game demanded of him.
As hosts of Euro 2004, Portugal were one of the favourites. Figo was named captain, as a nation waited to see if the golden generation would finally mature as an international force.
Figo was a fantastic captain. He didn't talk much, but he spoke at the right moment. He was a leader because of his individual and moral qualities. And those that played alongside him knew he had the authority to demand that they give their best in every single game.
Defeat in the final at the hands of Greece, after which Figo retired from international football. But he soon reversed his decision and led his country to a World Cup semi-final in 2006. Portugal's best finish in 40 years.
He had an exemplary career. He was and always will be engraved in Portuguese football history.
At club level, Figo took up a new challenge in 2005, swapping Real Madrid for Inter Milan.
When I knew that Inter had signed Figo, everyone thought, wow, a huge star of the game. He's already won the Ballon d'Or. What's he going to be like? And it was just incredible how humble he was when he got here.
We had always admired him from afar, from when he was both at Real Madrid and at Barcelona. He was a superstar. And then he came here. And what really surprised us was his humility and how much he enjoyed working with a new team. He was always so keen to help out and to make sure that we stayed at the top.
He continued to showcase his talent, not least in the Champions League, and helped Inter win 4 consecutive league titles. The Nerazzurri dominated Italian football, and Figo continued to play his part.
Whenever he was facing a fullback, he would change direction at least 10 times. He would shape as if he was about to cross the ball, and then he would change direction again and again, until he chose the perfect moment to put the cross in for the striker to score.
I'm very happy and grateful and can only thank the game of football that I had the chance to play with Luis Figo and, more importantly, to have won important titles alongside him. And now he's a very good friend. Normally when a player retires, that's it. But in Figo's case, we're still close, and that's pretty cool.
On the day Inter Milan secured their 4th consecutive league title, Luis Figo announced his retirement from football. It was a fitting finale for a true great.
Figo is part of the highest sphere in football. With Pelé, Maradona, Eusebio, he's a player that reached the very top in world football.
He could literally play anywhere he wanted to and be a star.
fast, he was strong, he was intelligent. From my point of view, what you like, you know, he got everything.
It was great to see how he behaved and how he was the first to set the standard and lead by example, with his work on and off the pitch.
He fully deserves to be named or remembered as one of the best in history because he really was incredible. He was just a fantastic player.
He fought for every ball. He was extremely fit, extremely strong, very quick. He would run at people. He would never ever hide.
Average footballers don't win World Player of the Year awards, Ballon d'Ors. Only superstars win those type of trophies, and Luis is certainly one of them.